Today you join me here at Old Berry Hill Fisheries. It's a well-known fishery in the match fishing circles for producing massive bags of bream and skimmers. And I can't think of anywhere better to come to show you how I use the Advantage Baits Green Bream. Like I say, you can catch some massive weights here, not only in the winter, but in the summer too. And today, I'm going to show you everything. So why is the Green Bream such a good ground bait? It's a ground bait that I was very excited about with the experience I've got over the last 20 to 30 years of fishing for silverfish. You know, my heart really lies with silverfish fishing. It's something I love doing, and I've been shown over the years the importance of having the correct ground bait. And the beauty was, with the Advantage range of ground baits, we were starting from scratch. They were going to be exactly what we wanted. The colour we wanted, the consistency we wanted, the breakdown speed that we wanted. And more importantly than most, when you're talking about ground baits with fish meal, the level of fish meal and the level of protein in the ground bait that we found exactly right. Some ground baits have too much protein in for the winter, and some ground baits don't have enough protein in for the summer. So with the Green Bream, it was about finding the correct balance, the right amount of protein, the right percentage, so the ground bait was powerful enough for those warm days when you're going to catch big weights of bream, but not overpowering for those winter days when the fish are hard to come by. I've caught big weights of silvers through the ice with this, and I've caught weights in excess of 100 pound of bream with this when it's really warm and the fish are really having it. One of the things that I came to realise was the best ground baits broke up very quick, releasing the loose offerings quick, being active and drawing fish into your peg quick. You want to create that carpet of bait. You don't want a ball of ground bait going to the bottom and just staying there for half hour, not activating, not breaking down. And the Advantage range of baits not only have the perfect amount of protein in, but they break up very quick, pulling fish into your swim very quick, and ultimately you'll be catching fish before your competitors. So mixing the Green Bream couldn't be easier. It's a very user-friendly ground bait. Always try and give yourself time though, at least an hour you want to mix it before you start to use it. And in the winter when it's cooler, you can definitely mix it the night before. Like I say, very easy to mix. Always use a nice round bucket, that way you haven't got any corners where you can lose some of the dry mix. As far as getting the mix right to begin with, I want it on the wet side. I want it so that when I squeeze it, it will come out in between your fingers. That way it will absorb a lot of the water and all sink properly. Just make sure that that first mix, it's really damp. And you can see there, if I pick it up and squeeze it, it's nice and damp and comes out through the gaps in my fingers. What I'm going to do now is leave that and come back to it, just fluff it up, and then it's perfect and good to go. Well, I've prepared the ground bait around about an hour ago, slightly over wetted like I've said, and I've just left it. All I've done is come back to it, just run it between my hands like that. It really is an easy ground bait to prepare. And you can see there, it's already perfect to be used. Like I say, I left it about 50 minutes to an hour, let it absorb all the water just to make sure it all sinks properly. It's good to go now. I've got that small tub of water on my side tray, so I can just play with the mix or alter it if I need to. I've got all the gear set up, the ground bait's ready. I think it's time to try and catch a few fish. So today I've set up the long pole, 13 metres, and a couple of open-ended feeders. I'm not going to be fishing miles out on the feeder. Here in the winter you can fish in excess of 60 metres to catch those few fish. This time of year, when the weather's nice and warm, they're a little bit more, you know, willing to come closer to you. So around about 35 metres on the feeder, where it's about 6 foot deep. On the pole it's a little bit shallower, it's a little bit of a slope going down, but that's perfect. I know it's going to be a hard bottom and also very clean. To start with, I'm going to introduce a little bit of loose ground bait, around about 100 mil, a small ball of ground bait and a few micro pellets onto the pole line. The feeder line, again, because of the power of the ground bait and the cloudiness of the ground bait, I'm going to be putting it in very, very soft. I'm not going to go putting loads in at the start. I'm virtually going to start fishing, and that is a brilliant way of fishing for bream. Just build your peg up as you go, feeding when you're catching fish, and that way you tend not to overfeed. And what I'm going to look to do is to start on the feeder, and then as the day goes on, just keep topping up the pole with small balls of ground bait and a few micro pellets, and then later on in the day go on the pole and hopefully put a fair few fish together. There's one on the feeder, single grain of corn. Just really putting that ground bait in light early on in the session, like we spoke about, trying to create that bit of a cloud coming out of the feeder. And that's exactly what I've done. First cast, it's been out there probably 5-6 minutes, had a couple of little indications, and then a nice pull round. Not the biggest bream in the lake, but a beautiful fish, probably around about the pound and a little bit mark. And again, what that fish has done, you can see as well, a classic sign, hooked in the bottom lip, which means that fish has come down from a height, picked the bait up. It's probably seen that cloud of ground bait, that green sort of mushroom cloud that we spoke about, gone down, seen the hook bait, and bang. As far as how the bream feed is concerned, obviously when you get them in your peg, they can be relatively easy to catch. As long as you're patient and wait for those positive bites. Don't be picking up at liners. You'll notice on the feeder that I've got my rod well away from me. I'm not holding my rod. And this is very, very important for me. If I get an indication, the time it takes my hand to get to the rod is the time I've got to make my mind up whether I'm going to strike or not. And it's amazing the amount of times you get to your rod and you don't strike. If I was holding the rod, I definitely would have struck. So like I say, a little bit of patience. They're not the most ferocious fish, say like carp or barbel, that will pull your rod in if you're not on your rod. A lot of the bites will just be like nice, slow, but constant pulls. And that way you can make your mind up, you know, with a little bit of patience as what to exactly to pick up to. But I want to talk a little bit about the way that the bream feed. Now obviously when you've got them in your peg, like I say, baits like micro pellets, dead maggots, sweet corn can be fantastic used in conjunction with green bream. But the one thing that a lot of people tend to ignore, and for me it's the most important thing, is how do you get them in your peg in the first place. It's okay if you roll up to a venue, you cast out and you've just got a peg full of bream that are already there. But those days when you might be slightly off the fish, or the fish might be at range and you're waiting for them to come in, you need a ground bait that's going to attract the fish. And this to me is the most important thing. And what we've created with the green bream is not only a ground bait that will hold them once they arrive in your peg, but a ground bait that will attract them very, very quickly. It's got a lot of very fine particles in it that create, as I've already spoke about, that sort of mushroomy green cloud, and that's what's going to pull fish in. Those days when you've got big winds mean one thing, big tows. And if the water's moving, you need those fine particles, those rich smelling particles to drift down and pull fish into your peg.
There we go, there's another one. Now again, you saw then I actually went for the rod a couple of times there, and I could easily have picked up twice. Next time you go out and you're fishing for these bream and skimmers, that little bit of patience, set your rod up away from yourself a little bit and give yourself that time to make that decision. Yes, it's definitely on, or no, it's not. Feels like a decent fish. Again, with all my fishing, strength, durability, reliability is of utmost importance. We're only fishing 35 metres here today, at 10-pound Daiwa ST mainline. I don't want it to let me down. Slightly thicker, stiffer lines, very tangle free also. And also I don't want any crack-offs whatsoever. The rig itself is quite simple. I've just got a small feeder boom that the feeder is attached to, free sliding. A lot of fisheries you've got to have free sliding feeders now. I've got a couple of small beads there just to stop it on the knot, and an 1.5 to 2 inch loop tied there with a couple of little loops tied in it. That just acts as a boom and holds it all away from the feeder. As far as the hook length's concerned, you know, it's got to suit the venue you're fishing, the fish you're fishing for and the bait. For today's session, because I'm fishing hair rig corn, 015 fluorocarbon, a size 14 gamma wide gape eyed hook and a little yellow bait spike, just so it goes hand in hand with that corn. But like I say, nice and simple, but very strong and very durable, which is all I really want from a feeder rig. I've been popping in an odd small ball, a couple of expanders, and straight away you get the sense that not only has that bait attracted them, but it's really holding them in the swim. So there we go, we caught one straight away on the pole, which I sort of expected. We have been feeding it. When you're fishing with expanders, it's always worth just taking your time, picking a real nicely formed one out, and then also taking your time whilst hooking, making sure that your hook is completely covered by the pellet. Now, not only that does it offer your hook a little bit more disguise, but also more purchase, so that you can get more than one strike out of a pellet. There's nothing worse than shipping all the way out, striking, your pellets come off immediately, you have to ship back in. There's another one there now. Really is fantastic. Also, when you're fishing with these soft pellets, you don't need to strike hard. A firm lift is all you need, and again, that'll aid you not striking your pellet off. The last thing you need to do is really slam into these fish. I've got yellow hydro on, size 16 gamma pellet hook, nicely balanced tackle, and like I say, a nice lift is more than enough to set that hook into these bream's mouths. Beautiful size fish. Well, there you go, that's a typical stamper bream. There's normally two sizes in here, this size which is 2 and a bit pound, and then the real big ones. I've had a few of the big ones, but these are the ones that you want to come in and settle in your peg, and that's exactly what's happening. It's one a chuck at the moment. I'm going to get this in the net and get back out and hopefully get another one. just want to talk to you a little bit about the feeding today. Obviously I learnt a bit on that feeder. When I was casting the feeder out, the fish were coming straight to the feeder. I was getting little line bites constantly all the time. And that sort of gave me the heads up to feed the pole more often. If they're coming to that feeder and coming to the bait in the feeder, they're going to do the same on the pole line, but to regularly cup small balls. And that's what I'm doing. I find if I leave it more than 3 or 4 fish, the swim tends to go really quiet. So now I've made a decision, after every 3rd or 4th fish, I'm going to pop in a little tiny ball, round about that size, along with half a dozen 4mm expanders, and that seems to be keeping the fish coming. There's a lot of fish there now, but you definitely need to keep popping in an odd small ball just to keep them nailed to the spot and in your swim.
Well, what a session that was. It's been absolutely fantastic. Started on the feeder, although I did feed the pole line early, and really looked to see what was happening on the feeder to try and tell me what was happening on the pole. As soon as that feeder was hitting the bottom, I was getting a few little liners, which tells me the fish are coming to bait. And that's why, even before I went on the pole, I was feeding it quite regular. Caught about 12 or 14 decent sized fish on the feeder. Sweet corn hair rigged was really, really good. I don't think maggots or anything would have been as good today because there was definitely a few small fish about. As soon as I went on the pole, there was indications there straight away. And you seemed to catch 1 or 2 fish, then they went funny. But again, by regular feeding, a small ball of the green bream with a few micro pellets in it and about 10 or 12 expanders, I was able to keep fish coming virtually all afternoon. Like I say, an absolutely fantastic session with the green bream. Probably caught in excess of 80 to 90 pound of skimmers and bream. Fabulous to see the different size fish in here. We've had them literally from the size of your hand right the way up to 4 pound. A brilliant day, and the green bream's definitely done what it was designed to do today.